Good morning, students. Today we shall discuss an important aspect of the respiratory physiology, applied aspects or clinical aspects, as I was discussing in earlier classes. Now, the most important part of the clinical treatment of respiratory disorders is the oxygen treatment or oxygen therapy. So, today we shall discuss oxygen treatment or oxygen therapy. Treatment or therapy. Oxygen treatment or oxygen therapy. This is important because in a number of conditions you know quite well, particularly in the present pandemic situations, many of the patients who are being infected with the coronavirus, they shall have to be applied oxygen because that is the life-saving measure at the time of the pneumonitis or pneumonia caused by the coronavirus. So, oxygen is a life-saving measure in a number of situations, including chronic pulmonary obstructive diseases and the diseases due to pneumonia caused either by viruses or by bacteria. Now, let us see what are the indications of oxygen treatment. Indications. From the physiological viewpoint, the number one indication is decreased alveolar partial pressure of oxygen. Decreased alveolar PO2, decreased alveolar PO2 due to any cause. Due to any cause, decreased alveolar PO2, there will have to be application of the oxygen from outside. Second important thing, decreased diffusion of oxygen through the respiratory membrane. Due to the defects in the respiratory membrane, either pneumonitis or there is some problem in the lung interstitial tissue, so that there is defective diffusion of oxygen through the respiratory system. These are the two main indications of oxygen treatment, right? So, these two indications must be there for the treatment of oxygen, for the treatment by oxygen. Now, in the last class I was talking about different types of hypoxia, perhaps you can remember, and these hypoxia are of different types: hypoxic hypoxia, anemic hypoxia, stagnant hypoxia and histotoxic hypoxia. Perhaps you can remember that I have talked about all these hypoxia. Now, the main indication of those hypoxia, as I told you earlier, the main indication of the oxygen treatment of all the hypoxia is the hypoxic hypoxia. Why? Because as I told you that in hypoxic hypoxia there is reduction of partial pressure of oxygen. Hypoxic hypoxia, there is diminished partial pressure of oxygen. In other hypoxia, the partial pressure of oxygen remains almost normal. So, the main indication of the oxygen treatment, so far as the hypoxia is concerned, is hypoxic hypoxia. Whatever may be the cause of hypoxic hypoxia, it is maybe due to the less air, atmospheric pressure of oxygen, or there may be defect in the alveolo-capillary membrane or respiratory membrane, or there may be defect in the ventilatory process, or whatever may be the defect. This hypoxic hypoxia needs oxygen treatment. Now, the oxygen which is normally given is a oxygen gas mixture, that the majority of the mixture contains oxygen and the small amount of other gases like carbon dioxide, very small quantity nitrogen and some inert gases. I mean that resembles the composition of normal air. The oxygen gas mixture must resemble the combination of normal air. So the indications of oxygen treatment, so far as the oxygen gas mixtures are concerned, is there. Here the oxygen is mixed with other gases, but the majority of the part of the mixture, oxygen is the main component of the mixture. In fact, oxygen gas mixture, it is normally used in the words. If you go to the words, they give oxygen gas mixtures. In normally when there is reduction of the partial pressure of oxygen occurs due to any cause. This may be the cause or this may be the cause. These are the two basic indications so far as the physiological aspects are concerned. Now we shall go for an important caution of oxygen therapy. Very important caution. The oxygen should not be used injudiciously. It must be used judiciously. What is the caution? Caution is that whenever there is severe respiratory failure, with high carbon dioxide concentration in the body. What is the cause? Now in this condition, that is severe respiratory failure with high carbon dioxide concentration in the body, the oxygen therapy should be given with very caution. Why? Because in this condition the high carbon dioxide suppresses the respiratory center, central chemoreceptors as well as the respiratory centers. Perhaps you have been taught the chemical regulation of respiration. There you found that the carbon dioxide is a very potent stimulus for the respiratory center. Carbon dioxide also stimulates the central chemoreceptors, but if the carbon dioxide concentration becomes very high, then what will happen? There will be depression of the respiratory center, there will be depression of the central chemoreceptors. In this condition, it is the hypoxia which is present, is the only drive for running the respiration via the peripheral chemoreceptors. So in this condition where the central part of the respiratory regulation fails due to high carbon dioxide concentration, it is the only peripheral chemoreceptors who are very much sensitive to hypoxia. They maintain the respiration, and if the oxygen is given right at this moment without considering the prevailing clinical condition, what will happen? The hypoxic drive to the peripheral chemoreceptors will be gone. There will be no hypoxic drive because we have given oxygen, and therefore the hypoxic drive is not there, as a result of which the central receptors, chemoreceptors and the respiratory centers are already depressed by the high carbon dioxide concentration, and there is no input from the peripheral chemoreceptors to the respiratory centers. So as a result of which there will be whole suppression or depression of the respiratory center, and the person will die of respiratory failure. So it may so happen that you may kill a person with oxygen. If you do not consider the underlying pathophysiology, if you do not consider the role of the central and the peripheral chemoreceptors on the respiratory center, if you do not consider the role of carbon dioxide and oxygen on the different receptors, there is the central and the peripheral chemoreceptors, so you may kill a patient by applying oxygen in this condition. So what should be the condition? The condition is severe respiratory failure with high CO2 concentration. That means here the ventilation becomes very less. so much so that the carbon dioxide is retained inside the body, leading to a condition, as I told you earlier, known as hypercapnia. I will discuss hypercapnia later on. So, this caution must be exercised while giving oxygen treatment. Now let us come to another sort of oxygen treatment, another variety of oxygen treatment. In the previous condition I talked about the treatment by oxygen gas mixture, but here in this condition we will apply hyperbaric 100% oxygen. So try to appreciate the difference between with the previous one. There was a mixture of oxygen was dominating the scene quantitatively, but here the oxygen is the only gas which is being given, 100% oxygen, no other gas mixture is there. And hyperbaric means the pressure of that oxygen is high, more than the atmospheric pressure. That means hyperbaric. Baric means pressure, barometer, from there the barometer terminology has come. So hyperbaric 100% oxygen. What are the indications of hyperbaric 100% oxygen? The indication is very important, is anemic hypoxia. Number 2, stagnant hypoxia. As I told you earlier, that in these two hypoxia, the normal oxygen treatment will not act to control the situation. Why? Because the partial pressure of oxygen is normal in these two hypoxic conditions, anemic hypoxia as well as the stagnant hypoxia. Then what these hyperbaric 100% oxygen will do? They will increase the amount of dissolved oxygen in the blood. Increase the amount of dissolved oxygen in plasma. This is very, very important. This statement is very, very important. As the pressure is more, you know quite well, it is more the partial pressure, more will be the amount of dissolved gas in any physical solution. Here also the plasma, which is a physical solution, if you increase the pressure of the oxygen over there, then more amount of oxygen will dissolve in the plasma, irrespective of the fact what is the amount of hemoglobin present in that blood. So these two conditions, you know, anemic hypoxia, where there is reduced hemoglobin, I mean the hemoglobin concentration is less, Hb percent is less, or there is carboxyhemoglobin, or there is carboxyhemoglobin formation, as in case of carbon monoxide poisoning. In both the cases the hemoglobin is less, and in this condition you shall have to give hyperbaric 100% oxygen. Why? So that the dissolved oxygen quantity increases and the tissue supply of oxygen remains normal, in spite of the fact that the hemoglobin percentage or the hemoglobin which is functionally incapable, that is COHD, carboxyhemoglobin is less. So here the treatment is hyperbaric 100% oxygen. That is very, very important. This is an indication, hyperbaric 100% oxygen. What about the stagnant hypoxia? In case of stagnant hypoxia, due to the slowing of circulation, the supply of the oxygen through the hemoglobin right from the HbO2 is less. But as because the pressure of the oxygen which is given is very high, hyperbaric, and 100% oxygen, it not only is dissolved in the plasma, it is also dissolved in the interstitial fluid too. The same principle of physical chemistry is applied over here. as a result of high pressure, it is dissolved in 100%. It is dissolved in the interstitial fluid too, and from the interstitial fluid it goes to the tissues to supply the oxygen to the tissues. So in case of stagnant hypoxia, despite the fact that there is slowing of the circulation, if you give hyperbaric 100% oxygen, then it will almost ensure the adequate supply of oxygen to the tissues. Is this clear? This is the significance of hyperbaric 100% oxygen. Apart from these two indications, there is a third indication which I will discuss in my next classes, that is in case of deep sea diving. In deep sea diving, so there is some problem of pressure differences due to the underwater breathing, and the person who comes suddenly on the surface, there is some problem so far as the dissolved gases are evolved, resulting in some condition. Here also the 100% hyperbaric oxygen is given. I will discuss this third point later on. Later on means in the next classes. Is this clear? So for the time being, you must know hyperbaric 100% oxygen is given in these two conditions, that is anemic hypoxia as well as the stagnant hypoxia, where the dissolved oxygen content is increased. Next we will go for oxygen toxicity, very important. Oxygen, the very thing which is essential for our life, may kill our life too, or may cause some deleterious effect or disease condition in our body if given injudiciously. As I told you earlier, the judicious application of oxygen is very important. So what is oxygen toxicity? Oxygen toxicity usually occurs with 100% hyperbaric oxygen. Usually 100% hyperbaric O2. Normal oxygen therapy usually does not produce any untoward effect excepting irritation of the airways when used for a longer period, more than 8 hours. But the hyperbaric 100% oxygen is responsible for damage of some organs of our body, particularly in children. What do they do? Now, if the children are given hyperbaric 100% oxygen for a period of more than 5 hours, very important, more than 5 hours, then what will happen? It produces, apart from irritation, so what are the toxic effects? Usually in children, the toxic effects of hyperbaric 100% oxygen are: number 1, bronchopulmonary dysplasia. Bronchopulmonary dysplasia. What is that? This is a clinical condition where there is formation of the cysts in the lung of children. If the hyperbaric 100% oxygen is given for more than 8 hours and for a prolonged period, say for example for days together, in this condition, apart from irritation of the airways, this will happen, bronchopulmonary dysplasia. There will be some histological changes of the lung tissues producing opacities and cysts in the lung of the children. So they will hamper the oxygen transfer from the alveoli to the pulmonary capillary blood. So this is one of the important major side effects. The second one is more dangerous: retrolental fibroplasia. Lental means lens of the eye. Retrolentals means behind the eye, and fibroplasia means generation of fibrous tissue. So what is happening? As a result of this hyperbaric 100% oxygen, there is formation of fibrous tissue behind the lens, retrolental fibroplasia, development of the fibrous tissue behind the lens, and as a result of which the baby may become blind. The baby or the children may become blind, because if the fibrous tissue is there, it will obstruct the passage of light through them to the retina, and the children will not be able to see anything. So this is a dangerous condition. You must keep in your mind that whenever there is oxygen treatment, 100% hyperbaric oxygen treatment to children, it must not be given at a stretch for more than 5 hours. There must be a gap between the second slot of treatment, not more than 5 hours. If you give for more than 5 hours and for days together, there may be development of two important complications. One is bronchopulmonary dysplasia, another is retrolental fibroplasia. Apart from the fact, there may be some nervous symptoms like muscle twitching, then tinnitus. Tinnitus means the constant ringing sound in the ear. Some of you must felt this thing, constant ringing sound in the ear. And the third one, it may also lead to convulsion. It may also lead to convulsion. That means uncontrolled generalized contraction of the skeletal muscles throughout the body. It may be muscle twitching. Some of the muscles undergo sudden contractions, muscle twitching, or it may lead to such a condition when there may be generalized contraction of all the muscles, skeletal muscles of our body, known as convulsion. It may also lead to a tingling sensation inside the, or tingling sound rather, inside the ear, known as tinnitus. Tinnitus, Tinnitus. So, these are the complications belonging to oxygen toxicity. Right? These are the signs of oxygen toxicity. It must be cautious enough if these signs develop in patients, particularly in children. So that is about this oxygen treatment and therapy. Now we shall discuss two important points today, which I told you earlier in the respiratory disequilibrium. What I told you in the respiratory disequilibrium, there is hypoxia, oxygen toxicity, as I told you, which I have discussed. Two important things are left. One is hypercapnia, another is hypocapnia. So in a nutshell, hypercapnia. What is hypercapnia? Increased carbon dioxide in the body. Increased carbon dioxide in the body. In which condition it may happen, hypercapnia? If there is ventilatory failure, that is, if the expansion of the chest wall and if the expansion of the lungs fail to occur properly, then in spite of the greatest effort, there must be retention of some amount of carbon dioxide which are produced as a result of metabolism will be there in the system. And if carbon dioxide is present in good quantity in the blood, what will happen? It will react with water to form H2CO3, which dissociates to H plus HCO3 minus. This H plus ion concentration rises in the blood, leading to respiratory acidosis. Respiratory acidosis. So this is a metabolic disorder, or rather this is a disorder of the acid-base balance, sorry. This is a disorder of the acid-base balance which is occurring as a result of inefficient expulsion of carbon dioxide from the system. There is retention of carbon dioxide within the body. But one thing you must know, that whenever there is carbon dioxide concentration rises in the blood, it is immediately washed out by hyperventilation. Why? Because the carbon dioxide is a potent stimulus for the respiratory center. It is the most potent stimulus, perhaps you know, more than hypoxia. It is the most potent stimulant. So there will be hyperventilation and the carbon dioxide will be washed out, maintaining the normal pH of the blood. But if there is some problem in the ventilation of the subject, both due to the thoracic cage or due to the lung itself, then there will be no proper expulsion of carbon dioxide from the system, accumulation of carbon dioxide in the system, leading to hypercapnia, and the chemical abnormalities which occur is like this, leading to development of very high hydrogen ion concentration in the system, causing respiratory acidosis, which is a medical emergency. Acidosis is a medical emergency, right? So that is about the hypercapnia, right? So body compensative mechanisms come into action, and there is some treatment which is given to counteract this respiratory acidosis. However, that's a different thing so far as the treatments are concerned, but what happens pathophysiologically is very, very important. So that is hypercapnia. Just the reverse is hypocapnia. That is diminished carbon dioxide in the body, or in the blood rather, diminished CO2. What may be the cause? The commonest cause of hypocapnia is hyperventilation. Hyperventilation. A person is hyperventilating, so the amount of carbon dioxide is washed out from the body, leading to less concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood, known as hypocapnia. This hyperventilation may occur in hypoxia, for example in high altitude. This hyperventilation may occur as a result of some psychiatric disorder like hysteria, which normally occurs in female. Third, if there is a damage in the respiratory center, partial damage in the respiratory center, or some drugs which are causing stimulation of the respiratory center, so there may be hyperventilation, right? If the person undergoes severe exercise, so there may be hyperventilation. These are the causes of hyperventilation, and the hyperventilation, if occurs, will lead to increased expulsion of carbon dioxide from the blood, leading to hypocapnia. Is this clear? So for the hypocapnia to occur, there must be hyperventilation, the causes of which just I have mentioned. And if the hypocapnia is there, there will be reduced CO2 concentration in the blood. And if you go to the same reaction, if the reduced CO2 concentration in the blood is there, so what will happen? There will be diminished hydrogen ion concentration in the blood. Because the source of H plus in the blood or in the plasma is the carbon dioxide. Remember, this is very, very important. This is very, very important. The volatile component of H plus ion is carbon dioxide. The volatile component of H plus ion is carbon dioxide. So, if the carbon dioxide is more, there will be more H plus, which occurs in hypercapnia, leading to respiratory acidosis. If the volatile component in the blood is less, there will be less amount of H plus, and if the hydrogen concentration falls, what will happen? There will be alkalosis. So in this condition, in hypocapnia, what is happening? H ion concentration is less in the blood. Hydrogen ion concentration is less in the blood because the majority of the carbon dioxide have been washed out from the system, and as a result of diminished hydrogen ion concentration, what will happen? There will be respiratory alkalosis. This is respiratory acidosis due to increased hydrogen ion concentration, and in hypocapnia there will be respiratory alkalosis. Alkalosis, which is once again an emergency situation which will have to be corrected then and there, otherwise there will be some problems in the system. What are the problems? If the respiratory alkalosis is there, what will happen? There will be number one, cerebral vasoconstriction. Very important. Alkalosis leads to constriction of the cerebral blood vessels, and as a result of which there may be fainting. Usually fainting occurs. So perhaps you may have got the experience that if you voluntarily hyperventilate for some time, you will find some dizziness. You may do it on your own. That if you voluntarily hyperventilate as forcefully as practicable, then after a while, 1 to 2 minutes, you will feel dizzy. Why? Because there is hyperventilation leading to hypocapnia, leading to respiratory alkalosis, and the alkalosis causes constriction of the cerebral blood vessels so that the blood supply to the brain is diminished, leading to a sensation of dizziness or fainting. The second important side effect of alkalosis will happen. There may be tetany. Tetany, you know, there is increased excitability. Perhaps you have read in your previous chapters, previous systems. There will be increased excitability of the neuromuscular junction as a result of diminished calcium ion. There will be hypocalcemia, diminished calcium ion. So alkalosis will lead to diminished Ca++ in plasma. Why? Because this very condition, alkalosis, forms the compound of calcium much more in the blood, leading to reduction of free ionic calcium ion. So calcium exists in blood in two forms. One is the compound calcium, another is the free ionic calcium in almost equal amount, 50%, 50%. It is the free ionic calcium which is physiologically important, and perhaps you know that they accomplish a number of important physiological functions. I am not going to discuss them, but in these conditions, whenever there is respiratory alkalosis or alkalosis due to any cause, there will be reduction of the free calcium ion level in the blood, because the majority of the calcium, they undergo formation of compounds with other substances like citrate, nitrate and all these things, carbonate, calcium carbonate, calcium nitrate, calcium citrate, all these compounds are formed, as a result of which there is reduction in the calcium ion pool of the blood, which is known as hypocalcemia, and as a result of hypocalcemia there will be tetany. We know it quite well. So these are the two important situations: hypercapnia, what are the effects on the body; hypocapnia, what are the causes and the effects of the body. Right? And with this I finish today's lecture. Thank you very much.